Welcome to the Mental Health Matchmaker podcast. I'm your host, Jess, and today I'm chatting with Jasmine, who is a trained and licensed therapist, and we're chatting about body image, processing emotion, women's issues, and how to have more compassion with ourselves, which I think we could all use some. And so I'm going to give a trigger warning, actually, because we immediately start this episode talking about food, my relationship with it, and Jasmine gives some really excellent insight into how our upbringing really influences our relationship with ourselves and all the people around us. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Jasmine also specializes in addiction, relationship issues, and trauma. And without further ado, let's talk to Jasmine. I have struggled a lot with eating foods that keep me full. Basically, I was a very picky eater growing up.
Okay.
And so I was always labeled as the hungry kid. And so now as an adult, I'm starting to process okay, how did that make me feel? It made me feel like my hunger was always an inconvenience. That makes it harder to listen to that hunger and communicate it. And I feel like that ties into also the body image conversation, the self-esteem conversation.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. What we hear when we're younger, right? When we're younger, we're just like sponges, right? We are taking everything in from the environment and we are creating these schemas, right? And so the same way a toddler learning about, a horse, for example, right? They see that it's big. They see that it has a long tail. It has 4 legs and stuff like that, right? But then how do they start to differentiate between that and an elephant, right? Elephants are bigger. But it still also is this big animal that has 4 legs, right? And so over time, we just we develop these schemas, right?
Yeah.
And so how you are understanding the world and how you're understanding how you fit into the world, right, is really important. And if you're labeled a certain thing, right, whether it is the hungry person or, whatever it is, there's so many labels and kids can be so mean.
Yeah.
Kids can be so mean.
Yeah.
You grow up and that becomes a part of your identity when you're older, right? And so learning how to separate yourself from that is really hard, right? And something that I like to do with clients a lot is kind of look into the different parts of them that kind of exist, right? And so maybe that's more of this inner child part, for example, right? That is feeling hurt, that is feeling sad, that is feeling rejected, that feels really too big, right? So they have to be smaller. And so that part will communicate with you and be this is dangerous, this is bad. How can we avoid feeling like this again, right? And so it's now not seeking out as much food, not asking for as much food, right? Wanting to limit how much you're eating, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It stays with us.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing that I really appreciate about therapy is this shift in perspective where someone who's outside of your life, who's just hearing the things that you bring into session, is able to see things so much clearer than you can see things in your own mind. Because I would have never connected things I experienced as a child to things I'm struggling with now if it wasn't for therapy and having someone be able to be okay, hold on. Let's reflect for a minute. Let's look, there's some strings being attached.
Yeah, I always think of those memes where it's just what's that show?
Yes, I know which one you're talking about.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Is that the one where there's just all these strings attaching, right? Yeah. It literally is that, right? We are shaped so strongly by all of our different experiences.
Yeah.
I've recently started therapy again, and I was so shocked at just the most surface level conversations and how deep they got so quickly. And it was, it's things that I kind of already know, I'm a little familiar with, but just having the space to talk about it a little bit more, I was okay.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Don't do this to me, Carol. It was crazy. And it's another thing I feel I'm holding myself in some curiosity there around I already know everything, right? And so that's a really common thing that I do go into with a lot of my clients is even I know that I should do this, right? I know that if I go on a walk, I'll probably feel better, right? If I write down my thoughts, maybe I'll feel better, right? They logically know like different coping mechanisms. They logically know what is happening, right? But there's still something that's getting in the way, right? What happens when you do bring in a little bit of that emotion, right? Does it just start like overflowing and now you're flooded with emotion and you don't know how to cope and you can't even get yourself to, go on this walk or journal because you're just like so hyper aroused, like you're outside of that window of tolerance. It's interesting, and it's really hard to be able to find that balance, right? Because we want to rely on logic, and I think there's also this stigma that exists that you can't have emotion and logic existing together.
True.
Or you can, right? Like you want them both to be there.
Yeah.
It's important.
And sometimes I feel like I want to like logic my way out of something. And
Same.
And when in reality, I'm so grateful for therapy because I can go into that space and feel my feelings. And it's so crazy because sometimes I walk away being like, oh, I think I just needed to feel that. And get validation in that.
Yeah.
And it was more about being able to talk it through and process it. And, other times there's like crazy aha moments, but other days, there's just that feeling of like, wow, I was able to just feel what I felt and not like give myself a hard time for it.
Yeah. Oh, I love hearing that, right? And it's so great that like, for you and hopefully for, a lot of other people going to therapy, just being able to find that space where even if you do tend to rely on logic everywhere else, right? If you have that space where you come in and just like feel, right? It is contained. Yeah. It's contained in this room. It's contained in this space where it is safe and you are free of judgment and it is just you and this other person, right? That is getting to know you and that sees you and hears you and listens to you in, in a world maybe where everyone else is too busy too. Yeah. Right? Everyone's too focused on themselves.
Yeah, or everyone wants to always like bring their opinion into it too, which is hard. I was telling my boyfriend something yesterday that I was struggling with and he goes, "Do you want advice?" And I was like, I love that you just asked if I wanted advice instead of just giving me advice. Because sometimes you just want to sit in it and just feel it. And
just let me rant. I know. My partner's like that all the time. He's like, I'm giving you all these options. I'm like, I don't care about your options right now.
You're like, I just want to feel it.
Yeah, I'm like, I just want to be sad and annoyed.
Yeah,
let me just be mad. And he's just like, that's not going to fix things. And I'm like, I don't want to fix things right now. I can fix it myself. When I want to.
Yeah. It's such a process, all of it.
It is.
And there's so much we take on just every day. And being two women sitting here too, there's a lot we take on as women. There's a lot we go through with a cycle as well.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so just being able to have a safe space is, I think, just essential to be able to get through some of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like on that topic, like us being women, I think women, not all, this may be a generalization, but we kind of tend to lean more into the emotions, more into the feelings, right? Whether that is socially because women are they're expected to be the emotional nurturing ones, whether it is just genetic and in our DNA, that's how we are. And so of course we can feel a little frustrated when like our partners come in and just want to solve the problem, right?
True.
But they're also just trying to help, right? Like that is how they want to help. That's how they're showing their love of like, let me help you fix this problem, right? And it is really common, I think, for men, to go right into this like problem solving, right? Like fix the problem, move away from the emotions. They're not going to help you. The emotions are going to help you. Like get away from them, right? Fix the problem and move on, right? And that can be so helpful, right? There are times and places where that is great. But like therapy can be this place. And this is something that I do work on with a lot of men is like, what are the emotions, right? Like, can we move away from the problem solving for 5 minutes and just like feel? Can we just have space to like feel right now?
I love that.
Right?
And how does that go? What do you see happen when you ask for that?
Yeah, I guess it's a work in progress, right? As it is for anyone. I mean, at times there's some that are just like, I don't know what to feel, right? Like where they like have a lot of difficulty getting in touch with it. And I actually have so many clients, both women and men actually, that they say right at the beginning, they're just like, I don't even know like what emotion I am feeling. Like I don't know how to name this, right? And then over time, as they get better, you know, at practicing to name their emotions and practicing to understand like what the emotions are, what the unmet or met needs are behind those emotions, they're just like, wow, I didn't actually realize how little I knew about my own emotions back then. Like, you asked me first couple of sessions what I'm feeling. I don't know what I'm feeling, right? And they're just like, it's so great now to be able to like think about it and be like, I'm feeling rejected. You know, I'm feeling disappointment. I'm feeling envious. I'm feeling resentment, like whatever it is, right? They can get in touch with it so much more. And by being able to get in touch with that emotion, right, then you can take it a step further and be like, okay, what's the need there then, right? Like, what do you need, right? And then that also allows us to tie into the problem solving. Right? That's where the problem solving can come in afterwards.
Yeah. It's a whole like process.
It is.
And you gotta like, you know, touch each area before you can, you know, come full circle and find an answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. You know, we know it very, very basically and kind of surface level, you know, when our stomach grumbles, like that tells us that we're hungry. That's like our unmet need in that moment. Right. And so our need thus then is to get food, right? But when we're feeling like angry, for example, like what is the unmet need then, right? Is it a lack of control? Is it a felt sense of injustice? What would it mean to get justice? What would it mean to be in control? Can you be in control, right? What can you control? What can't you control? Are we able to accept that you don't have control there? What does that look like?
Damn. I like that tangent you just went on.
Thank you.
That is like it's big.
It is.
And also like it's so hard to process that on your own. Like a huge problem I realized I was working through in therapy yesterday was feeling powerless. Powerless.
God,
just feeling powerless.
So hard.
And wanting to be in control. And then she helped me like reflect on how this has come up in my life from when I was really, really young all the way till now. And so many instances were flashing into my head. And I was like, hold the frickin' phone. Like, I had no idea that this has been showing up in so many different areas, whether it's professionally, personally, in romantic and friendships and my family relationships and work. And I was just like, okay, this is way deeper than I thought it was.
Right. And you're talking about this like powerlessness, this lack of control, right? And you mentioned like having that anxious attachment style, right? And how much is anxiety then also tied into this lack of control, right? Or, you know, even maybe beyond that, that's just like the fear of the unknown, right? And not being able to control the unknown, right? It's terrifying. It is terrifying, right? And that's also so valid, right? Like it is valid for you to want control. It's valid for you to want to know because obviously that feels safer. Right?
100%. And that's another big thing I've been working through is safety and like trusting yourself that like what comes up in the future you will be able to navigate.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's so huge, right? And then maybe after experiencing like betrayal, hurt, the anxiety is just so much more heightened. And now it's like, is it intuition or is it anxiety, right? And not being able to discern between the two of them. And so I think there's this maybe tendency to just like assume it is anxiety, right? And then you want to control. But being able to teach yourself and learn that even if all of your fears like do come true, right? Even if this does happen that you so want to avoid, right? Like, are you going to be okay? Probably. Probably. Right? You know, what other resources do you have? What else can you lean on?
I think that is really common in this more anxious attachment too, to be so scared of a relationship ending. And then that, you know, we end up gripping so tight onto someone, and when the truth of the matter is like if a relationship were to end, like you would be okay and you would be okay. And strengthening that trust with yourself, I think, is a big thing that can come out of therapy.
Yes, absolutely. That confidence in yourself, right? That security with yourself. It's intimidating, right? Like there's no doubt about it. And it's a long process. And it's also really difficult because part of kind of, I guess, like healing, so to say, these attachment styles, part of it does come from like healthy relationships, right? And so I think people tend to kind of just jump right into like romantic relationships, right? But where else can you experience and thrive in these healthy relationships, right? Be it with, parents, maybe not, friends, right? Friends are a great one. With your therapist, right? Like, how are you learning that that's like a secure attachment, right? That you can say what is going on in your head, which sometimes we're afraid to share because we're like, am I supposed to be having these thoughts? Like, is that an okay thought to have?
Yeah.
Right?
Vocalizing the intrusive thoughts you may have.
Yeah, absolutely. And learning like, oh, like I'm showing them these like deepest, darkest parts of me, and they're still accepting me and they're still showing up for me, right?
Yes. You've mentioned emotional regulation, and I feel like you hear about that when you're in like elementary school, like emotional regulation and teamwork and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, what really is emotional regulation? What does that look like in a day-to-day life experience? And then, how can therapy help with that?
Yeah. I always go back to the window of tolerance. I don't know how familiar you are with the window of tolerance.
Tell me like I know nothing.
Okay, perfect. So you can literally imagine like a window. People can't really see a window, but like let's say we have a window here, right? Within that like window of tolerance are our emotions that are tolerable, right? We can feel them and still be okay, right? We can still function. It doesn't take away that they may be uncomfortable, right? Like we can kind of feel like anxious and be like, oh, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now, right? Like I'm feeling anxious right now being in front of this mic and the lights and all that, right? But I'm still able to function, right? And so I'm within my window of tolerance now, right? And so, I have my water here that I'm holding. You may have seen I've been like picking at my fingers. Like that's just like
totally do that.
yeah, right? That's just part of like my ways to maybe ground myself and emotionally regulate, right? But then when we kind of step outside of that window of tolerance, we have hyper arousal, which would be like on top of the window, which is where we're just like overwhelmed with that emotion, right? It is that like overflowing that we were talking about earlier, right? And so maybe that leads to a panic attack. Maybe it's like a rage blackout, or you're in a fight with your partner and you just like can't. You're so overwhelmed with that emotion that you can't even like see their perspective. You cannot even take a moment to empathize with them because you're too busy feeling, right? You are in flight or fight. That's the one. And then alternatively, there's also like hypoarousal, which is like below the window, which is, the complete opposite, where once again, it is this like overwhelm of emotion, but you just like go numb.
Okay.
Yeah, you just kind of shut down and you just like can't even feel anymore because feeling feels too dangerous, right? And so exploring with clients what their window of tolerance looks like is a big step in that emotional regulation, right? We can look at times where they have felt maybe lots of emotion, but they were still able to do whatever it is they needed to do or wanted to do, for example, and times where they couldn't, right? Where they were seeing red, where they were going into a panic, where they turned to feeling nothing, right? And kind of what happened there. And then from there, it's looking at when you do find yourself outside of that window, whether it's hyper or hypo, what can you do to bring yourself down, right? And so, stepping away from a little bit, like it's really hard. I'm talking so casually about this. It is so hard to do. It is so hard to do when you are just like seeing like red, for example. And
you're so mad.
And you're just like shut down. Like, how do you just step away, right? And so it is a learning process of just like learning, what am I feeling right now? Like, can I effectively communicate? Can I effectively have like conflict resolution right now? Probably not, right? And so I think stepping away from that environment where possible. And then it's going into like grounding techniques, right? Distraction techniques, right? Like, can you tell me 5 things that you see, 4 things that you hear, 3 things that you can smell, 2 things. I don't remember it right now.
You went almost all the way there, so I got the gist of that.
Something is taste. Can you do that and just like step away and kind of remind yourself or show yourself that like you are safe, you are okay, right? Yeah, these emotions are really big and really uncomfortable, but like you're okay, right? Until we can eventually get to a point where we are back within our window,
Yeah.
right? And over our window will just get bigger as we practice identifying our emotions, discovering what our needs in the moment are.
I feel like being able to label it changes a lot and identify like, oh, this is what's happening in my body. And so one, that just helps with awareness, and then understanding what next step you could take that would help. Because I feel like a lot of relational issues could come about from being out of your window of tolerance and just trying to resolve it, but in reality not being able to process anything or think clearly because you're in this hypoarousal or hyperaroused state.
Yeah, name it to tame it, baby.
Name it to tame it. That's a quote. I like that. Name it to tame it,
right? Can you acknowledge what that emotion is, right? And if you can, you know, that makes it that much easier, right?
I forget that emotions will pass.
Yeah.
I genuinely do. Sometimes I feel, you know, more challenging emotions and I think I'm going to be in that forever. But at the end of the day, especially when you name it, you're able to tame it and accept it and give yourself a bit of grace with that too. And that I feel like is a good segue into talking about this self-compassion piece that therapy can help with, and not even realizing we might be talking really negatively about ourselves.
Yeah, self-compassion is so important, something I try to bring into a lot in my work with clients, right? Because we have this tendency to be really like mean to ourselves sometimes, right? Yeah, with that self-compassion, can we like give ourselves a little bit of grace, right? That like we're doing our best, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that best can't be better, right? But like in this moment, you know, are you doing your best? If you are, okay, right? And if you aren't, what else like can you do? There's that like two things involved, right? There's that kindness to yourself, right? Being empathetic towards yourself. There's also that accountability. There's also something I like to work on with clients is like spoon theory. I don't know if you're familiar with spoon theory.
No.
It can be kind of fun if you almost imagine like how many spoons do you have in your drawer, like when you wake up in the morning, right? Okay. And so let's say you have like 10 spoons, right? So maybe on a really, really good day when it comes to, you know, the basic stuff of like eating, going to work, showering, getting ready, all of that, like taking care of like your basic needs. Maybe on a really good day that takes 6 spoons, right? Maybe 7 spoons, right? You still have 3 spoons left over, right? What do you want to do with that 3 spoons? Do you want to go to the gym? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to see some friends? You know, what can you do to use up the rest of your spoons, right? To feel really accomplished, right? Are you able to use up 10 spoons, right? Maybe on a really bad day where you're just like feeling really low, maybe you're depressed, right? Maybe something like going for a shower is taking up like 8 spoons, right? Right? Now you only have 2 spoons left, right? And so kind of using that metaphor to explore like what do you have the capacity for today, right? And what can you do that maybe will like help you add another spoon to that drawer, right?
True.
Like, you know, taking some time to, you know, sometimes like going for a walk will almost like put an extra spoon in there, right? We feel more energized. It's so funny
because you can be like, oh, I'm taking a spoon to go for a walk, and then suddenly you come back from the walk, and you're like, oh, I feel like that actually gave me more energy.
Yeah, now I have 3 more spoons.
3 more spoons.
What the heck?
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way to like visualize it too, because I think some of the things that we, you know, feel really caught up in our own head about or struggle with, it can feel impossible to make things happen or get out of bed or do any of those things. So having like that awareness of like, oh, I can picture this thing.
Absolutely. Metaphors can be so powerful, right? Because it's something that you can find common ground with, like among everyone, right? Everyone can kind of imagine like waves, whether or not you've been to the ocean, right? Everyone can imagine waves. Can you imagine your emotions as being waves, right? They come, sometimes they're really big, sometimes they're really scary, right? Like you don't have to go to an ocean or to have been to an ocean to be able to see that, right? But there's so many different options, right? Seeing a car drive by, right? Can you imagine your emotions as being this car that drives by? Are you going to run after this car, right? You know, or are you just able to like watch it go by?
Yeah,
you know?
I love that. That's really, really helpful. And I mean, you've offered so much wisdom today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll have all your details linked in the show notes.
Perfect.
So people can book a session with you. And you offer in person where we are right now in Mississauga, which is awesome. And then you do virtual sessions as well.
I do. Yeah. Yes. Mississauga in person and virtual.
Cool.